can have your attention, please. My name is Karima Lewis, and by now you should know I am the 94th president of the Georgia Association of Women Lawyers. Thank you very much. And I want to welcome you today to the Path to Empowerment series. Today, our topic is Analyzing the Pause, Assessing the Effect of Peri and Postmenopause on Women in the Profession. This is a series that I created as a GAWL member to speak to the issues affecting women lawyers and to advocate and empower for women in our profession. On behalf of our host organizations, GAWL, GAPABA, ACC, and GABWA, thank you for being here for what I believe is an important overdue professionalism conversation. Thank you to our co-hosts, all of our organizations that help us put this together and execute this event. This could not have happened without all of your efforts. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you, Troutman Pepper, for creating the space for us to address this topic. Thank you to ACC for covering all of the CLE fees for everyone. And thank you to Veritext. Veritext is live streaming and video recording this for playback. And actually, on that note, I want to introduce someone very special, Robin. If you'll, or you can stay there. I want to give you just a quick second on behalf of Veritext to address our crowd.
Thank you, Karima. So Veritext Court Reporting is, of course, a large national court reporting agency, but we appreciate partnering with GAWL so that we can live stream this to anybody who is interested in the topics in the organization. It's a great organization to partner with. And I just also wanted to add, in addition to the CLEs that Karima has created for this organization, Veritext also offers complimentary online CLEs monthly that you can register for. There's no penalty if you don't show up, and if you do show up, they will end up having the credits applied for you. You don't even have to do anything about it. The topics are amazing, everything from social media, which is an ethics credit, to artificial intelligence, which is an ever-evolving topic right now, and you really need to get in front of that. If you are interested in knowing about it, I'll put some cards out if you'd like, Karima, but you can just visit www.veritext.com/CLE, and it will take you to the CLE splash page, and there are many, many relevant topics that are in there and available for you as a courtesy.
Thank you, Robin. Again, Robin Hibb with Veritext. And actually, if you are a member of one of our co-hosting organizations that helped to plan this event, can you just stand up? Just want to give you a quick round of applause. Jillian, Danielle, Tiffany. Thank you, ladies. All right. Tonight, we are examining how health-related transitions intersect with our duties of competence, civility, leadership, and public trust. All of the core principles under the Georgia Lawyers Creed and the Aspirational Statement on Professionalism. Tonight we will apply the Georgia Lawyers Creed and Aspirational Statement to realistic health-related professional scenarios, identifying concrete strategies to maintain competence, integrity, civility, and public confidence in our profession during menopause and perimenopause, excuse me. This is not a wellness seminar. This is a professionalism discussion. And as such, this program will speak to why professionalism matters during personal or medical transitions, analyzing the relationship between health, competence, and ethical obligations, and offering, discussing perimenopause and menopause as professionalism issues, not merely wellness topics. So, as it is a professionalism CLE, I have to point you to the Georgia Lawyers Creed and the Aspirational Statement on Professionalism, which you can all access with the QR codes that are out, also via the link in the email. If you will pull those up, I want to point you specifically to the line items that will be discussed tonight. So as for the Georgia Lawyers Creed, we will discuss the duty to maintain respect for courts, lines 1 through 3, the duty of dignity, civility, and courtesy, lines 6 through 10, the duty of competence and fidelity to clients, lines 14 through 18. And under the Aspirational Statement on Professionalism, we will discuss the commitment to competence and preparation, lines 21 through 28, the commitment to civility and respect, lines 49 through 56, the commitment to inclusion and fairness, lines 73 through 80, and the commitment to mentoring and leadership, lines 95 through 102. I invite you all to read and review these using the QR code provided. If you are online, you can follow the link that you have in your email. But as of right now, I turn it over to our moderator, Ashu Sharma, to begin our program. Thank you all for being here.
I'm just going to moderate from down here, if it's okay, but if you can't hear me or see me, I'll be glad to stand up and raise my voice or whatever I need to do. But I am so happy to be here again. Ashu Sharma, I know many of you, and there are some new faces here as well, but I feel like we're just girlfriends here talking together. And when I was seeing the attendee list, I thought I saw one male, and I was like, wow, what brave man is going to come hear us talk about this. But nonetheless, we're here talking about a very important topic, and I feel like I was personally chosen because I'm going through this shit. But you know, really jokes aside, it is a serious thing that we go through, and I think the sharing around the topic definitely helps, since we've got some important careers and some important things that we do, and we try to navigate through them as best as we can with the health issues that we all go through. A little bit about myself. I am General Counsel at Home Services of America, which is owned by Berkshire Hathaway. It owns brands like Harry Norman Realtors in Georgia and Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Georgia Properties. And there's also 2 brands in Alabama. I support all of those 4 brands as their GC. So I have a little bit of a busy daytime job. And then as far as my outside activities are concerned, I've been on the board of ACC Georgia since I've been in-house. So that's been about a decade now. And I'm so glad we can give you that one professional credit today. That takes the stress off of things for sure. So that's a little bit about what I do. But tonight I'm really multitasking because moderating the panel and negotiating with my internal thermostat and hormones, one of us is going to behave, and I'm not sure which one it's going to be. So, but laughs aside, guys, let me explain to you how this is going to work today. There's going to be a medical context because we've got some pros here, medical pros here, that are going to give us some expert advice, followed by a fireside chat that's going to take us through some professionalism scenarios so we can try to use some of that good advice in our real world days. We do have a QR code like you mentioned, and so that's where you can access the material, so there's not a reason for you to photograph or whatever unless you just want to, but do scan that barcode. And if you're joining virtually, hi, welcome. Click the link that was emailed to you, and you'll get all of that stuff as well. So without delay, we're going to jump into the panel, and I'm so happy to introduce Dr. Rachna Relwani. Hi, Rachna. Who's going to provide medical insight into the hormonal and physiological effects of perimenopause and menopause. Dr. Relwani is an Ivy League trained clinical endocrinologist in practice for over 17 years in Atlanta, and she's active in the Georgia Society of Endocrinology, the American Association of Clinical Endocrinologists, and the American Society of Preventative Cardiology. She is multi-year top doctor recipient, and she speaks nationally and has written for Cover Magazine, NRI Pulse, and recently founded Bill, the country's first clinic focused on precision cardiometabolic prevention in South Asians. And you can find information on that on desibill.org. So welcome, Dr. Relwani. And then we've got Dr. Barbara Jones, hi, who's going to address the psychiatric and cognitive dimensions, including stress response and executive functioning. Dr. Jones is a board-certified family medicine physician and a sought-after on-air medical expert. We're going to have to ask you about what stations. Along with practicing comprehensive holistic primary care at her private office in Lawrenceville, she teaches young resident physicians and medical students as well. I love that. And one of her passions is treating perimenopause and menopause, which she has been doing since 2017 before it even became a buzzword. Now, when she isn't doctoring or appearing on national TV, she is modeling. Wow, interesting. Playing basketball or active in her sorority. We'll have to organize a different event. Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. She resides in Lawrenceville as well as a mom of a boy-girl twin toddlers who were born through IVF, and she loves to travel. Wonderful. And then we got Chief Magistrate Court Judge Cassandra Kirk, who many of you may know, and she is going to help us examine how all of these issues that we're going to talk about, the health issues we're going to talk about, intersect with courtroom expectations, professionalism, and judicial standards, because nobody's told us how to figure that out yet. The Honorable Judge Kirk serves as Chief Magistrate Judge of Fulton County, and she brings more than 30 years of legal experience to improving court operations and access to justice. You look too young for that to say. But appointed by Nathan Deal in 2014, you were twice elected by Fulton County voters, and she's known for her innovative, community-focused leadership, as many of us know about her. And Judge Kirk has launched impactful programs, including juvenile drug court and misdemeanor mental health court. She has also advanced initiatives such as mandatory civil e-filing, thank you for making a litigator's job easier, the REACH Consumer Self-Help Clinic, and the GAWL, that is Court Day Lunch and Learn program for students. Her service and leadership has earned honors, including being named one of Atlanta Business Chronicle Journal's top 25 extraordinary Atlantans, the Daily Report Legal Trailblazer, and she received the Lifetime Presidential Achievement Award under Joe Biden. So glad to have all of you.
And before we get too far, I want to shout out some members of our team that are here. So Judges Cora, George, and Taylor are here with us. And so I have an amazing team. So glad to see you.
Welcome, welcome. So let's get started here. We're going to start with you, Dr. Jones. Dr. Jones, why is there such a fear and lack of knowledge around treating menopause now that it's a buzzword?
Okay. Can y'all hear me? Okay, so there's been 23 years of fear mongering and actually 23 years of physicians who weren't trained and 23 years of women who were marginalized by the Women's Health Initiative that was released in 2002. In 2002, there was basically $1 billion that was put into, can online hear me? Akil, are we good? Okay. In 2002, there was a study that was released. There was tons of money placed into something called the Women's Health Initiative, which was supposed to look at women. And then all of a sudden, right in the middle of the study, they said, stop. Hormones cause blood clots and they cause cancer. So then that's all across the news. And so anybody who was comfortable treating with hormone replacement therapy, they had to stop, and then everybody was just scared. So then that was 23 years ago. But then about 2 years ago, you start hearing the buzzword where perimenopause and menopause comes to play. And so the reason why that happened is because of the way that they went about the data. It was interpreted incorrectly. So what were we doing? We were giving, does anybody know what, we were giving women conjugated equine estrogen. Does anybody want to take a guess on what that is?
It's from horses.
Yes, we have a pregnant horse. Let's go get her urine and make it into estrogen and give it to women orally.
No.
Okay, so anytime you give somebody something orally, it takes something called a first pass through the liver. And so anytime something takes a first pass through the liver, then there, it has a tiny, a little bit elevated risk of a clot. But we don't give estrogen. We don't give horse urine estrogen orally to women. It's in patches or creams, right? Or troches in the mouth. So that's not, that was, Then we talk about cancer. Yes, there was a little bit of increase where there was a couple of women where they found cancer super early, but they got that removed and there was no increase in mortality, meaning no increased number of people dying. So that whole thing, and actually it's cancer protective, right? It's cardiovascular protective. And so because of that, we have a whole 23 years of physicians who were not taught and women who were fearful. But now there's a push for women. We're over half of the population. So God forbid a man can't get his penis up. We have Viagra, we have Cialis, we have FDA-approved testosterone. We got super penises walking around, and nobody cares about the other half until now with the We Do Not Care movement. And so with that, women are pushing for equality, they're pushing for insurance to pay for things, they're pushing for all that, and that's why there is fear. And so now, physicians were being pushed to study and to learn and to be able to treat and know what the contraindications are, like which person is not allowed to have hormones or who is allowed to. And for these women in perimenopause, which is that decade prior, where people are just like, oh, this bee is crazy. No, she has hormone imbalance on top of a couple of other things. And instead of marginalizing and just saying it's supratentorial, which in medicine means, oh, she's crazy, supratentorial above the tentorium in the brain, that it's not really here, that's our way of being like, she's crazy. So instead of saying that and marginalizing and gaslighting for the last 20 years, now there's a push for equality, for studying, and for actually treating, and that when it's time that you should be treated. Because they're saying, if you get treated 5 to 10 years prior to that last period, you can decrease risk of heart attacks and strokes by 60%. You can single-handedly decrease risk of osteoporosis and dementia by 50%. You can decrease risk of breast cancer and colon cancer significantly. And so that's why this is important.
Awesome.
Happy to power.
Did I say we're going to be learning something new today? I just didn't know it was going to come out of a horse's butt. But with that, Dr. Mulroney, please give us some additional information, very important information about perimenopause and menopause. And I know you got some nice slides to help you do it.
I have a PowerPoint. I know you ladies like PowerPoint. Thank you for that intro, Dr. Jones. That was great. I am Dr. Mulroney. As Ashley said, I'm an endocrinologist. I've been in practice for a long time, and I have been taking care of perimenopause and menopause that whole time. So I promise this is the only pun in the talk is on the title slide. So this is what we're going to cover today. We're going to all get ourselves on the same page in terms of knowledge, and then we can get directly into the cases and how this affects you ladies personally. Okay? So we're going to talk about what perimenopause is, who it affects, the symptoms, the hormones involved. When we talk about hormones, which ones, the effects on health, what Dr. Jones gave you a brief overview on, treatments, and then our final takeaways. Okay? And I talk fast when I'm nervous, so we're going to go fast. So first we're going to talk about definitions. So the definition of menopause is going 12 months without a period. Perimenopause is 5 to 10 years before that. It can be longer than that. It is not an exact thing that you can measure with a blood test or with a stage. It's a clinical diagnosis. To put it in the terms my kids use, it's a vibe. And one point I really want all you ladies to understand is it's not so much the loss of hormones that you get with menopause, it's the chaos of hormones that comes before that, okay? So you have your hormones, you're going along, and yes, in menopause those hormones are lower, but what's happening in between is you get this big seesaw, and it's the seesaw that makes women feel bad more than the actual levels, okay? So progesterone is the first hormone to drop first. We'll talk about what that means. Another point I really want you ladies to take from this is that there was an article in the New York Times a few years ago that described menopause as puberty in reverse. And I think that's a really good way to think about it because it takes years to go through. You also are supposed to go through it, and you're also not the same after as you were before. And there's almost no way to be the same after as before. That doesn't mean you have to give up on everything. And we certainly want you to stay cognitively intact and metabolically healthy. This time period is also when you're getting all your opportunities for leadership and career advancement. We want you on top of your game, and we want you breaking those glass ceilings. So this is that hormone chaos I was talking about and that seesaw I was referring to. So there are some places that will talk about clinical stages, but practically speaking, it doesn't matter. It's a clinical diagnosis determined by talking to the patient. And like I said, it's a vibe, and you guys, you know your vibe. All right, So I included this is 50, some of you may remember Blanche on the left, she was 53, okay? And that's what that looked like at that time. Now we have J-Lo, and some of us never looked like J-Lo, and menopause is not going to help that. But I do also want to make a point, so it is possible, but even for J-Lo, whose job it is to look like that, she said it did get significantly harder at 50, okay? Not impossible, but significantly harder. All right, so who and when? Basically, all biological women. The average age of menopause is 51. We've said this starts 5 to 10 years before. So usually most women will have symptoms in their 40s. Some women will have symptoms in their 30s. A lot of times in clinic, I'll see women that were like, well, I have these symptoms, but my doctor said I'm too young. You're too young for menopause, you're not too young for perimenopause, okay? So you're basically never too young. Certain women go through it earlier, women who've had pelvic surgery, women with a history of infertility, certain ethnicities go through menopause earlier. But if you're having the symptoms, like I said, you know your vibe, so you know. All right, so everyone knows about hot flashes, but you ladies are lawyers, and so the symptoms may show up differently in you, and I wanted to talk about that. A big one is going to be anxiety. You're used to speaking in front of people, you're used to speaking in court. All of a sudden, you may notice that you're having palpitations. You may be waking up in the middle of the night with palpitations. That's a pretty common symptom. ADD often shows up in this time period. You never had it before, but all of a sudden, you start having it. And you're not going crazy. Words are, it says just slightly harder to retrieve. I've heard women say significantly harder to retrieve. All of a sudden, you're like, what am I holding? Why can't I think of it? Low frustration tolerance, easy irritability. Some of us have a head start on that. Heavier periods. So one of the first changes you'll see is your cycle actually shortens. It goes from 28 days to 21 days. That's not uncommon, and that's a sign of perimenopause. They also get significantly heavier sometimes, unfortunately. Abdominal weight gain despite the same diet and higher LDL cholesterol on labs that were fine. People say, I don't feel like myself. The most common thing I hear, honestly, is people say, women say, nothing has changed, but I don't feel like I'm in the same body. So that's a very common sentiment, and again, you're not going crazy, but your body is changing. Again, puberty in reverse, okay? All right, so in terms of the 3 hormones, these are the main 3, but there are many other ones involved as well. Estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Progesterone is the first one to drop. That's what leads to those shortening periods. It also affects sleep. It leads to the 3 a.m. wake-ups, and it can affect your bowel movements, which is another symptom that a lot of women don't want to talk about. So estrogen then goes next, and you can see all the things it affects there. We're going to go into those effects a little bit more. Testosterone actually doesn't change, but these hormones are not in isolation. They're interacting with each other. And so that can be affected as well, and some women do need testosterone supplementation, some women need DHEA supplementation. And then I put honorable mentions for cortisol and thyroid. So those are 2 other hormones. They're not specifically involved in perimenopause, but a lot of the symptoms overlap, and those should probably be checked because the symptoms overlap. All right, so I did mention thyroid. I call it the red herring here. So like I said, a lot of the symptoms overlap, so it's hard to know when I first see someone what's what. The good news with the thyroid is you can find out pretty quickly with the blood test if that's the cause or not. So like I said, perimenopause is more of a vibe. Thyroid is not a vibe. Thyroid is blood test. Okay. All right, so I alluded to this, why it matters. So not all women have symptoms of perimenopause or menopause. Some lucky ones sail through without a problem, okay? Even if you're one of those lucky ones, your body is changing, and you do need to make sure that you get these other things checked, because the symptoms don't necessarily correlate to these other things, okay? So one is going to be cardiovascular risk. As Dr. Jones mentioned, estrogen supports your heart health. And after menopause, your heart risk accelerates. We now know menopause is a major metabolic inflection point. Your bone density declines. So you need to get vitamin D, probably get a bone density check depending on where you are. Muscle loss accelerates. Very important to add strength training at this point, okay? So even women who don't gain weight will describe that the Like it redistributes, so you get the abdominal fat, you get sarcopenia where your legs and your arms thin out because you're losing muscle, okay? And then we've already talked a little bit about mood and cognition. So I'm a little bit biased because my practice focuses on cardiovascular risk, so I wanted to mention that again about menopause and cardiovascular risk. So remember, heart disease is still the #1 killer of women, and you're actually 6 to 7 times more likely to die from heart disease than breast cancer. Now hopefully we're all getting our mammograms, but we should also make sure we're getting our hearts checked as well, okay? So certain groups have elevated risk. If you've had early or premature menopause, you have 40% increased risk of heart disease. Surgical menopause, you have an increased risk. The age, generally under 60 is where you see the most risk, between 50 and 60, which is one of the reasons there was all the caution with the hormones with the Women's Health Initiative. I think that's it. All right, so I've mentioned a little bit about what we should check, but let's go through. So you want to make sure you're getting your thyroid checked, your cardiometabolic markers, your iron studies. Remember I said you're bleeding more, so a lot of women will become iron deficient in this time, which contributes to fatigue and makes everything worse. And then bone health, which we also talked about, bone density and or vitamin D. What you don't want to necessarily rely on are random estrogen levels. So remember, you're in that seesaw, and you don't know at what point in the seesaw you are if you're just checking one random level, okay? Some doctors will choose to follow hormones for various reasons, but one level really isn't that helpful. And remember, it doesn't tell you if you're in perimenopause or not, okay? Salivary hormone panels, usually not useful. Salivary cortisol is useful, but the other ones are not, okay? And again, it's a vibe. All right, so we've talked a lot about the negatives. And I hope Asha doesn't mind, because she actually said this to me, and that's what made me put it in the slide. So there are actually biological reasons for why women feel this way. There's a hormonal recalibration, where honestly you have less of the oxytocin and less of the people-pleasing hormone. Your frontal cortex controls your personality. And so that, you have slight changes there where, again, less people-pleasing. There's this accumulated stress response. I mean, up until this point, women have been going. Often you have young families, older parents, midlife, career stress. So there is a little bit of this accumulated response of F it. And then also your prioritization shifts. You start thinking more about what's important and how you want to spend your time. And so a lot of times people, oh, women are hormonal. This is what's biologically happening, and I think we need to take back that narrative. And we're not crying all the time. We're just growing up and taking care of ourselves, putting those boundaries in. All right, so there are different treatments for perimenopause. There are hormonal options, there are non-hormonal options. A lot of it depends on what your symptoms are and where you are in the process. So we mentioned a little bit about hormones. You might need one, you might need all three. There are oral options, there are transdermal options, there are injection options. Luckily we have more than horse's urine now. And pretty much all women do need vaginal estrogen. I didn't include vaginal up there, but that's another one as well.
Keep the WAP.
So, yeah, and vaginal estrogen is not the same as taking it by mouth, and it doesn't have the same effects, and literally every woman needs to be on it, okay? Whether or not you have symptoms, whether or not you have anything else going on, you need to be on that. But anyway, muscle, we talked about strength training, being really particular about your protein intake. Sleep, you need to start being very protective of your sleep. If you have to sleep in another room, move into the garage apartment. You're not going to be pulling all-nighters anymore. Alcohol is not your friend. I think more and more we're finding out that no amount of alcohol is probably good for us. It's maybe unrealistic to cut it out completely, but maybe start cutting back and start being more intentional about your alcohol intake. And then supplements, they're not required. Again, depending on your symptoms, there is some evidence to support magnesium, creatine for brain health, and vitamin D. And there are a few other possible supplements that your doctor might recommend depending on your symptoms, okay? But none of them are absolutely necessary, nothing that I think you need to go out and buy today. All right, So, there used to be black box warnings on all these hormones. They were taken off as of last year, as Dr. Jones mentioned, because we now know it's not as bad as they thought it was. At the very least, there needs to be more context. If you had a conversation with your doctor and they said you're not a candidate, it may be worth revisiting that conversation again, because things have changed so much in the past year, and there are almost no contraindications to hormone therapy now, okay? And there are women who are in their 90s walking around on hormones. So if you need them, take them. Okay. Oh, I did want to mention bioidentical is a marketing term, because a lot of patients will come in saying they want bioidentical hormones. That's a marketing term, so even the hormones that we prescribe that you pick up at the pharmacy, those are considered bioidentical. Okay. All right, so these are my takeaways. It's not just hot flashes. It's diagnosed by symptom and pattern. It's a vibe, you know your vibe, you know what you're feeling, you know how your brain works. Make sure you absolutely check the metabolic risk markers, even if you don't have any symptoms, those are being affected. The hormonal transition is temporary, but the trajectory is not. In terms of further resources, there's a documentary called The M Factor. The part 2 is actually coming out tomorrow night on PBS. There's a book, it's called What Fresh Hell Is This? And then the Menopause Society, it has a lot of information as well.
Love it, love it. That's good info. I'll be the first to admit that I'm not one of those lucky ones, so I can check off all of those things that you mentioned, but I love living with freedom, so that phrase was my phrase. But what I love about what you said is how there are solutions, because as lawyers especially, we love solutions, and as women especially, we deserve solutions. And so I would love to pivot to you, Dr. Jones, turn back to you. I know you're going to be telling us how to keep that WAP. What are some of the more controversial topics related to this?
Let's go with like contraindications. So
Yeah.
for me, when somebody comes in for a peri or a regular consultation, I need to make sure that they've had a mammogram and a pap smear, like a pelvic pap smear with their gynecologist or with me within the last year, just to make sure we're at baseline there. For me, there's 3 like complete contraindications. So what is a complete contraindication? If you answer yes to any of these questions, you are not a candidate. So for me, the first one is, have you had breast cancer that is sensitive to estrogen or progesterone? Because if we're giving you hormones that is feeding a cancer that you've had, then you can't be on it. But I got tons of triple negative women, you know, on hormones that had triple negative breast cancer chasing their husbands around, and they're very happy. Okay, so, and that even includes if you have family history, that's not you. But, you know, you could do further testing, you know, genetic testing and things like that to have informed team-making, decision-making. But that in itself should not exclude you, okay? Just cancer in itself. Get the pathology. Is it sensitive to estrogen or progesterone, okay? Number 2, do you have liver disease? Why? Because the liver is the detoxifier and it breaks down hormones. So if you have liver disease, we're just gonna have hormones just hanging around, building up, and so that's a contraindication. And then the third for me, brain fart.
It's a real
Is
thing.
this Perry? Okay, the third is, I can't,
They'll come back to you.
But anyways, I guess that was perimenopause. I'm in my 40s. Active vaginal bleeding. Like if you are postmenopausal and then you have new vaginal bleeding, or if you're currently having like severe vaginal bleeding, we're not going to do hormones. That's complete for the moment until you actually get treated. We find out that it's not polyps or endometriosis or fibroids or something that's under control, and then you're a candidate. I don't know. Do you have any other to add? Those are my 3 complete contraindications.
Almost no I mean, even I've had women who've had hormone-sensitive breast cancer who've chosen to go on hormones. I mean, the cancer is, you know, remote, stage 0, whatever. So there are almost no contraindications. Blood clots would give me caution. That was on my slide, but depending on what caused, I mean, I know a GYN who's on hormones who had blood clot, you know, so.
If you were sitting on a 12-hour flight,
yeah.
and that's why it was a provoked DVT, then that shouldn't be it, because we know what it was.
Yeah, good stuff. So just check with your, you know, providers for your specific situation, but it looks like a lot of providers and experts get involved. You know, you got the gyno, you got the cardio, and Probably therapists somewhere in there too. But thank you so much. That medical grounding is so critical as we now turn into how all of this intersects when we navigate the realities with our professional duties, right? I mean, that's what we really have to figure out. The new, grown, evolved me. How does that person behave now with all that we have on the table for us? And so we're gonna go ahead and transition into our fireside chat that I promised earlier. We're going to talk about analyzing scenarios for real world application of our professionalism standards. That's where you get the credit. So listen carefully. We're gonna have Chief Judge Kirk involved in that as well. I'm gonna present our first scenario to our entire panel, and that's gonna be, I'm a recovering former litigator, so I might need to pay attention to this one. A seasoned litigator, after weeks of insomnia and night sweats, appears in court experiencing brain fog and heightened anxiety. During oral argument, she momentarily forgets a key citation and misstates a date. She corrects herself, but is visibly flustered. You know, it can throw anybody off when you're trying to think off your feet. Now, Dr. Jones, how does this stress in a courtroom amplify the symptoms you were talking about?
So the stress response. So as we get older, let's just say that this is right here. You have a lot of reserve as you're younger, right? And then all of a sudden you go through the stress of taking care of children, of taking care of a spouse, of taking care of a household. And basically the reserve that you had has come to neutral, and now all of a sudden you just flop over and then it's just over and done with. Okay, so let's go back to progesterone. After 35, your progesterone incrementally goes down over time. Progesterone helps with sleep, the feeling of well-being, your ability to manage stress. And when that incrementally goes down over time, what you managed at 25 and all that stress, you could manage it. You were hustling, you were good. Then all of a sudden now at 45, 55, 65, that same stressor, you can't handle that stress. You start to feel overwhelmed, you start to feel anxious, you start to feel sad. And then also the process of not getting sleep at night, and so you're not getting that deep delta wave sleep that restores you physically and mentally, and then all of a sudden you just feel frazzled and you don't feel like yourself. So the solution to that is peri and menopause are inevitable, but suffering doesn't have to be. And go find somebody who believes you, who is not antiquated like a dinosaur in their thinking, and don't let medicine gaslight you anymore. Go find somebody who's willing to treat you and listen to you and take care of you.
That's awesome. And empathy is so important. So hopefully a judge from the bench can share any empathy that is deserved in those moments. So Chief Judge Kirk, from the bench perspective, how do courts distinguish between a short cognitive disruption and a lack of preparation, which can be real?
And so I want to say it is not the court's duty to figure out what's going on with you, right? So you've come to court and there is an assumption that you are prepared to be there. If there is something that is not right with you, that's a matter of being self-aware. It's a matter of you being able to say, oh, something's not happening right today. How can I make this better? What I will say to you is from a court perspective, what we're looking for is pattern and recovery, not perfection. You don't have to get it right every time, but if it's a momentary slip, you clean it up. Let's just keep moving. The question is whether or not you are prepared enough to regain the accuracy of what you're doing and keep the proceeding fair, right? Because we don't want to be rushing over to you because you're in sweats or whatever and you can't figure out the next step. That's unfair to the other side, and professionalism requires you to come in prepared and ready to handle your case. So I'm going to say to you, court doesn't care. Standards of professionalism are what's going to rule. And I think as long as we start there, it's going to be easy. I'm going to give you a couple of tips. Well, let's talk about the professionalism part. We're talking about respect toward the tribunal, so from the Creed 1 through 3, civility and dignity from the Creed 6 through 10, and duty of competence 14 to 18. I think every time we as women walk into a room anywhere, we have to know that we are going to be over-prepared. We are going to be more prepared than most people that come in the room. It doesn't change. And then the duty of preparation and the aspirational guidelines 21 through 28. In terms of practical tips, I've got 3. 1, bring a fog-proof kit. A 1-page outline, tabbed key sites, simple timeline. We go back to the Creed 14 to 18. The other two, use a dignified reset early, right? May I have a brief moment to check my notes? Accuracy first. Accuracy is more important. And then number 3, plan coverage when you have warning signs. You know when you wake up, you don't feel well, something's not right. Who's your backup? Figure that out before you get into a point where you need it. Is there co-counsel? Is there a backup? You want to protect your client and you want to protect the record. That's what you are hired for.
Yeah, absolutely. Ask for help. I mean, I think that's a really important one for us women especially. We have a tendency to do everything ourselves, right? And I think it's very important at this stage to be able to ask for help and hopefully, receive it. I feel like in the heat of it all, we still need to be able to laugh at ourselves and not take things too seriously, and that's why you're hearing my lame jokes throughout this, because I just can't help it. Because, really, menopause can be proof that even our hormones are making surprise appearances like some motions in court. So, but that takes care of the litigator. But the transactional lawyers are not safe from this either, because they're creative beings, and and I was actually going to add, even with the courtroom situation, not only do you have the judge to present to and to satisfy, but you might have your client sitting in the background too, that you've got to appear the most, capable and zealous and professional too. And so I think some of the tips that you mentioned work for that situation as well. And the client's going to appreciate the realness and the human side of you, and especially that you took some steps for the preparation and just in case situations as well. So with the transactional lawyer, we've got a senior transactional attorney overseeing a high stakes deal, is experiencing severe fatigue, migraines, and difficulty concentrating. I don't think that's a menopause issue. That's the reason I'm not a transactional lawyer. Late at night, she overlooks a clause revision. The error is caught, but she fears reputational harm if she asks for additional review support. Asking for help. So Dr. Jones, how does cognitive overload increase risk under sleep deprivation?
I wasn't ready for that question. I had like so much other stuff that that I could talk about. Do you have an answer?
Sure.
You talked about this a little bit.
Yeah, so we've already alluded to this some. So fatigue is pretty typical in women who are waking up at night, of course, but even otherwise, women will say, now I need a nap in the middle of the day, and that never happened before. So that's a pretty common symptom. Migraines do get worse around menopause. Again, it's that seesaw effect often rather than the hormone itself, and hormones are a known trigger of migraines. Like I said, ADD comes out a lot. So if you're having any of these symptoms, and especially if you notice they're recurring, definitely get checked out, okay? And find a doctor you trust. And also, I saw this sort of meme, and it was like, okay, I have a headache. I don't know if it's perimenopause, I didn't eat right, I didn't sleep well, I had a drink last night, or my ponytail's too tight.
It could be any of those. And from the bench, though, Judge, how do structural safeguards become part of the duty of competence? That's the responsibility part that we've got. And then how should supervisors approach performance shifts without stigma? We want to be perfectionists.
Right, and so competence isn't just, and let me turn this on, competence isn't just what you know, it's how you practice it. And so in high stakes situations, structural safeguards become a part of professionalism, and that's how we protect our client. So when we have preventable errors, the only way to do that, only way to avoid that is build in a couple of safeguards. As for the supervisor, the standard is going to be to keep expectations high and to treat each other with dignity. We're going to build a culture where asking for a review support is seen as responsible and not shameful. And so guidelines, let's go to the guidelines. Duty of competence, Creed 14 to 18. Duty of preparation, aspirational, 21 to 28. Civility and dignity, Creed 6 to 10. Inclusion and fairness, aspirational guidelines, 73 to 80. And leadership and mentoring, aspirational guidelines, 95 to 102. Practical tips. Make second eyes routine on critical cases. Make a checklist, have version control, and define review points. So it's not something that is, oh my, she's overwhelmed. It is, nope, this is something we do for every high stakes client, so now it becomes part of what you do. Ask for support in a work-focused sentence. I want additional review pass to protect the client and the timeline, right? So now you're not saying, this is such a big deal and I think I'm making a mistake, I think I might forget something. What you're saying is, I care and value for this client and I want someone else to look at it. And then for supervisors, to intervene early but respectfully. We don't really need to be in your business. I don't professionally want to be in your business, in your personal, I'm not feeling well, I have a headache, all of that. It's not, right? Normalize finding coverage for what needs to happen and redistribute the workload. So keep managing and move forward.
Absolutely. I think it can be an opportunity for forming ethical workplace cultures. You know, I remember a time when we were having babies and we had to bring firms along to that and companies along to that and clients along to that and perhaps even judges and opposing counsels along that journey. So I think this is yet another journey where we've got to bring others along and formulate some good professional cultures as well, and that includes in the workplace. So the third and final scenario that we're going to touch on before we have the alcohol that we're not allowed to have is my world, senior corporate counsel before the board. A senior corporate counsel presents to the board after a night of insomnia. Mid-presentation, she experiences a hot flash, heart-racing anxiety, and loses her train of thought. A colleague could assist, but she fears appearing unprepared. So, Dr. Rawani, do these symptoms mean this attorney is in menopause, and how would she figure that out?
So again, it's a vibe. It's not something you can check. We went over the definition of menopause. It's no periods for 12 months, but she easily could be in perimenopause. So a lot of it is knowing yourself, being as prepared as you can, as we've said, and also being comfortable asking for help. And as I said before, if you feel like if it happens more than once, basically, then I think you need to start having that conversation with your doctor, seeing any required specialists. If you feel like you're not getting anywhere, then find a doctor who will listen to you. Usually it's a woman doctor, honestly. So.
Yeah.
I'll add to that we've deduced perimenopause and menopause to hot flashes because hot flashes only happens with two things, tuberculosis and menopause. So obviously this is a first world country. We don't have tuberculosis much. And so we've deduced it to hot flashes, and that's not fair because we have estrogen receptors all over the body. Hence the fact with the brain, after menopause, we can get dementia, so there's the irritability, the anxiety, the depression, even heart palpitations. So Oprah's the poster child for that, and why she's making all the movies, because she was having palpitations and flutters and felt like she was gonna die. So she went to a doctor and they were just saying, just shut down the magazine, just shut down Harpo Studios, you're just anxious and you know, you're a woman, the whole frantic thing. So then she went to somebody at that time, I think it was like a decade ago, who actually treated her with hormones, and we have estrogen receptors in our heart, and it stabilized that, and she didn't have the flutters and palpitations anymore. So that's why she's on a rampage making all those movies. And then joint pain too. So how many women have had joint pain, and we've only had two options for them? Is this autoimmune? Is it something like rheumatoid arthritis? But then they don't have a positive ANA, or they go to the rheumatologist and they can't figure it out. Or then we send you to orthopedic, surgery where we look, was there some sort of tear or some sort of overuse injury? Then we do the physical therapy, we do the imaging, the x-ray, the MRI, we do the injections, and still nothing. So what do we then give them? The tattoo of fibromyalgia. So how many women, yes, that is a real diagnosis, fibromyalgia, which means I just have pain and I don't know where it's coming from. But in medicine, a lot of times we look at people with fibromyalgia like it's supratentorial, when the whole time, probably a majority of those women that were diagnosed with fibromyalgia were gaslit by medicine because we were behind and not trained. And really it was the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause, and if they got on estrogen, then the pain goes away.
I will say it's very common that I see women who've seen multiple specialists for joint pain, and the cause was hormonal. And you still have to see the specialist because it could be that, right? A lot of this is a diagnosis of exclusion as well. But yeah, I mean, definitely, and the joint pain improves on these. Now, not everyone needs hormones. hormones again, but it is part of the equation, and it's worth considering.
Yeah, I feel like I gotta do LEs or CMEs for the cardiologists and the orthopedic surgeons because it's not even on their radar.
Yeah.
They'll
That's
just put
why
a
they
woman on a
gotta be
beta
talking
blocker
to
that
each other.
increase your risk of heart attacks and strokes. Like,
Yep, you gotta have them all involved and
Mhm.
talking to each other, know your body fully. But Judge Kirk, so what does professionalism require in leadership settings when composure is briefly disrupted? And what resources might be available to one going through it, especially from the state bar or otherwise?
So I would say professionalism in leadership does not require you to be superhuman. It does not require you to get everything right all the time. It requires stewardship. And so if your composure is briefly disrupted, the professional move is to protect your accuracy, regain clarity, and use support appropriately. I would say a dignified pause, a planned handoff, I'd say is a sign of preparation and not weakness. And so make use of that. In talking of the guidelines, duty of competence, duty of preparation, the CREED, duty of competence 14 to 18, duty of preparation, aspirational 21 to 28, and you all know what I'm talking about. So I'm talking about a lawyer's CREED, it was in the handout, and then the aspirational guidelines that are connected to that. Civility and dignity, CREED 6 through 10, leadership and mentoring, aspirational 95 to 102, and then inclusion and fairness 73 to 80. Practical guides. Number 1, pre-wire discrete handoff. Agree on a signal and who can cover each section. Number 2, use a calm reset script. Let me pause for a moment and come back to that point. Then check the agenda and notes and come back to your point. And number 3, if a private briefing is needed, keep it continuity based. Coverage, timelines, next steps, no oversharing. So I think that's the summary.
Good list there, for sure. And I like to think of menopause as professional cross-training. If you can keep your composure during a hot flash or a brain fog, my goodness, you can handle any courtroom or boardroom, right? And go as women for that. So that concludes our scenarios, and I would like to offer this opportunity now to each of our panelists to do any closing remarks before we break away. Dr. Lamont?
Yeah, so I just want to emphasize again that you know what's happening with your body and make sure you find someone to talk to who can help you sort it out. And it can be, multiple fields. So if you're not happy with one, go to another one. But yeah, don't ignore your symptoms, and as Dr. Jones said, you don't have to suffer.
okay, everybody, on Instagram, I'm at the Model Doc, THEMODELDOC. If you want to get in touch. I'm in private practice. I'm a primary care physician, and I see 12 and older men and women. But it ended up being where 90% are women because I have been treating peri and postmenopause for a decade. I am booked out until June, but I'm gonna open up a day or two. If anybody would like to be my patient, I'll take a list of your name and number. I'm in Lawrenceville, but I'll open up a day just for whoever came here so that you don't have to wait till June or July or August to see me.
Wow, look at that. That was a reason to come.
Absolutely. So I have to say it's been an honor to join GAWL in this panel and to hear and be just kind of a part of this discussion. I know that my part was very much smaller compared to the medical experts here, but as practicing attorneys, remember, we've got the code of ethics, we've got the professional responsibility standards. You all have the same rules that apply to you as they apply to the male attorneys and everyone else. You don't get a pass because you're having a bad health day. I would say to you, if you have something that would arise to a disability or even a temporary disability, that you seek assistance and guidance for that. I know that the state bar has the your 5, I keep forgetting it. Take your 6. So I would encourage you to do that if necessary. And so that's for mental health, but I think it's also appropriate when you feel professionally stressed. And so again, thank you all for having me. Great to be up here with this panel. So yes, thank you.
Invite the applause, and it's more than a golf applause. So. But because we got to tick off that professionalism credit, I'm going to just remind you, we hope the takeaways from this presentation have been concrete professional safeguards that uphold competence, when temporary symptoms might require medical intervention, like we talked about, how colleagues and courts can reinforce dignity and civility, and how professionalism doctrine applies to evolving health realities of women lawyers. So with that, we're going to conclude this session, but you do have an opportunity for a Q&A. There are note cards that have been passed around, I believe, and you can submit questions for the panelists. They're going to hang around to take care of, you know, yeah, absolutely.
I was gonna say, commonly there's, we do estrogen and progesterone, but I just want y'all to not forget about testosterone. So in our bodies, there's actually more testosterone than estrogen, but they consider it the male hormone, but it's not really, it's just a hormone. And so don't be afraid of that. It helps with cloudy brain, energy, and libido. Okay.
As you can see, there's so much information, and yet there are questions that we may not even have thought of as the talk was happening. So again, take this opportunity while you have them, the professionals, to ask them the questions that you want. And please do join us for a membership mixer immediately. I mentioned the alcohol after the program in the lobby area, which will be downstairs, and there will be some drinks and light bites for your enjoyment. And I don't want to forget you virtual people out there. If you're attending this via live stream, you must do the following in order to receive your CLE credit for this presentation. Please, please email your name, bar number, and the CLE passcode to president@GAWL, GAWL.org, and the CLE passcode is PTE 2620. And thank you so much, everybody. I don't think I forgot anything, so yay, success!
While they're writing their questions, can I talk about WAP a little bit? Okay, so why should, as we were talking about needing vaginal estrogen, so there's two types. You get systemic estrogen, which is for all those symptoms, but also your flower needs to be watered. So our genital urinary syndrome, how we pee, and the vagina need estrogen like a plant needs water. And so after a certain age, as the ovaries stop making those hormones, all of a sudden the WAP goes away. So, but you can keep a WAP lifelong. It doesn't have to be that way. You can keep it forever. So what is the point of having a WAP? It is actually life-saving medicine to give vaginal estrogen. How many of us have a family member that was a woman who fell and broke her hip and died within a year? Raise your hand. Or know of somebody. There's a whole epidemic of women 65 plus, postmenopausal, who get a UTI. They stand up, they trip, they break a hip, and within 12 months, 80% of them die. That wouldn't have been that way if she was on vaginal estrogen. Let's go all the way back, okay? What do we want? A WAP. What is a WAP? It is pink, it is moist, and it is well rugated. So what is rugate? Beefy. So if a penis or a toy goes in, it's gonna stretch, and then it's gonna come back down, or if a baby comes out, right? That's what we want. It is acidic, it helps kill things, it's a self-cleaning oven, and it puts us at decreased risk of getting a yeast infection, bacterial vaginosis, and a UTI, that in itself. So as we're starting, and prevention is better than cure. So I'm 40, I'm already on vaginal estrogen twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays. So whenever there's a partner, I'm ready for Friday night. There's that one guy. And so that's what we want. Now, as we're going to the other side, it's pale, it's dry, and there's no rugae. So we're already stretched out. So you heard about Holly Berry, who had a really good night, and then the next day it was really burning, right? And she went to her doctor, and he said it was herpes. It was not herpes. It was that non-WAP going on to the other side, and so she was already stretched out. So when, you know, her man went in, it ripped her, excoriated, and it was painful. And then imagine urine hitting that when you're going pee afterwards, and then it's painful, and it's just not, but it's not just about pleasure. On this side, you're at risk for yeast infections, for bacterial vaginosis, and for UTIs. And if the UTI goes septic, then it can alter you mentally, and then you stand up, and then you're off balance, you fall, break a hip, and if you're 65 plus, 80% of those women die within a year. This is life-saving medicine. So right now you can do, and there's no reason to not be on it. Mark Cuban has cost plus drugs. You can get vaginal estrogen for $13 for a tube, you know? So I'm just a big advocate for that. And then my women who are older in nursing homes or don't have the capability to put in cream, rub in the cream on the inside and the outside, or put in the little tablet, which is the one I do because it's less messy. There's vaginal rings like the Nuva ring, but it's vaginal estrogen. Just have a loved one pop it in there for 3 months, take it out, put another one, and you can have a WAP lifelong for pleasure when you want it, but also to save your life.
Thank you so much for that continuing information. Appreciate all the expertise, and to close it out.
I want to say thank you again, Jillian, Tiffany, Fani, Danielle, Jeff with ACC. If I'm missing anybody, it's charge it to my mind. Charge it to Perry. For helping us coordinate and execute this event. Thank you to our amazing panelists. If you learned something, please give them a round of applause. I'm going to turn it back over to Shu for a couple more announcements.
Yeah, so I mentioned the bar downstairs, but you're welcome to leave or stay through the Q&A, but we thought the conversation's just going in such important directions and we're getting such good information, we might as well touch the Q&As right now with you guys, if that's okay with all of you. And again, whoever needs to leave can leave, but if you would like to stay for the Q&A, please do. So first one, any specific blood tests that we should ask for?
So in terms of perimenopause and menopause, probably not in terms of the hormones. Like I said, some doctors do choose to get it and follow the hormones, but one random test isn't going to tell you anything. I did put the list up there, and you have it in your materials about checking thyroid, iron, checking cardiac studies, just like cholesterol, screening blood sugar, those kinds of lab tests you need. You may need a cortisol, depending on your symptoms. So there's not a standard panel for this. It really is getting a full evaluation.
And is,
Yeah.
go ahead. Yes, please.
Oh, no, when I have patients come in, it's a full evaluation looking at U360 because I'll find that symptoms overlap, that we have low iron. So iron storage, the goal for ferritin, which is your iron storage, is 75 plus. So people who don't have enough iron, I'm going to see that you have palpitations and you're short of breath. Also, you can't have voluptuous hair without that iron. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at vitamin D. I'm looking at B vitamins. I'm looking at multiple things because, again, perimenopause, I believe you, but there's also other stuff that overlaps. So let's treat all of it. Yeah.
And it is all connected too. So as I mentioned, fluctuating estrogen levels can actually affect your thyroid. So your thyroid levels may be off because of estrogen. So it is all connected, and you do need a full evaluation.
Yeah, but if you are symptomatic, I'm going to treat you. I will treat you if you are symptomatic. Along with everything else, we're treating all of it.
Yeah, these are such good questions. The next one is birth control sufficient if it is working for the physical symptoms, such as hot flashes, but not the mental, emotional, brain fog, and frustrations?
So there are many treatments you can use. Birth control is fine. Birth control, just to give you an idea, so hormone replacement therapy is a fraction of what's in birth control, which is a fraction of what you get in pregnancy. Okay, so if you've gone through pregnancy, you've gotten much higher doses of hormones, and I wouldn't necessarily be afraid of it. I'll use birth control for ease and often for depending on the age of the patient. If it works, you can continue it well into your 50s. Okay, but yes, it doesn't necessarily treat all the symptoms. So you may also need something for cognitive symptoms. You may need something for anxiety in addition. So even though hormones are the root of all these symptoms, treating hormones doesn't necessarily treat every single symptom. And a lot of it is trial and error. And so you have to be willing to go back to your doctor and say, okay, this is helping this, but not this. So do we keep it, or do we add something, or what do we do? And everyone's different, and there's no way to predict it without trying.
Yeah, and I mentioned having a therapist as part of your toolbox too. And so somebody's asking, when would you recommend seeing a therapist while figuring out the perimenopausal treatments?
Prevention is better than cure. So just like you can come to a physician for a problem-based visit, you also come, as a woman, you get 2 preventative exams. One physical with primary care and then one gynecological. And so you're gonna do that every year regardless, and it's a preventative visit. So same thing with mental health. Health is mind, body, and soul together. So you render us incompetent if your mental and your emotional is off the chain.
In my 20s, one of my friends said something like, we all need therapy, and I agree with that. So I think if you're thinking about a therapist, go find one. There's no need to wait on that.
Psychologytoday.com. You can find somebody and you can put filters in for zip code and even for African American and for different things that you're dealing with. Psychologytoday.com.
And would hormonal IUD help or exaggerate perimenopausal symptoms? Do they help?
They can actually exacerbate them. You have different types of IUDs, but none of them have both estrogen and progesterone. I also treat PCOS because I'm an endocrinologist, and it can definitely make PCOS worse. So I would not jump to an IUD. They're great for birth control, but if you're having any kind of hormonal symptoms, I would not jump to an IUD.
All right. On top of y'all, can you talk about hair? Because my hair is dry and skin is dull. I can relate to this. Any symptoms related to hair and dermatology that you can talk about?
If you think about it, like our vitamins and minerals, they're going to go to our visceral organs to keep us alive. The first thing that goes when you have decrease in vitamins or minerals is your hair, skin, and nails. So go and get checked for vitamins and minerals. And then yes, there is the hormonal piece to it as well. So that's part of it, as well as I see it a lot in thyroid conditions. So those are the top three things that I'll think of: hormones, thyroid, or that you're vitamin or mineral deficient. All of them go together. And yes, iron, 75. Your ferritin, aka iron storage, needs to be 75 or higher if we're talking about voluptuous hair. That's how I approach it in primary care.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you have to check all those things. You don't always find an answer, but you do have to check all those things.
And we've been talking about some good solutions with hormone therapy. Does insurance cover that treatment?
We don't cover testosterone. Most
Oh,
insurances
wonderful.
will cover some types of estrogen and progesterone. They do not cover testosterone.
But I'm on testosterone. I think I got like 5 months for $98. Y'all can handle that.
Dr. Rolani, you mentioned that ADHD symptoms could be present during perimenopause. If you were previously diagnosed with ADHD, do your symptoms worsen?
They can, yes, they definitely can. So it's unclear whether the ADHD was there and there's less reserves and so it comes out. So whether the perimenopause unmasks it versus causing it de novo, and there's not really a way to know that. But yeah, basically everything can get worse.
Well, I am hoping the answer to this next question is a hard no. Can perimenopausal women get pregnant?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, like when you reach 40, 97% of your eggs are gone, but there's still 3% there.
Good to know. Maybe we do things differently. Okay. Anyway, should I be concerned?
Can I
Yes,
add
please.
one thing? Okay, when we talk about ADHD, since I'm more holistic in my approach to medicine, one thing that I'm capturing is that people actually have trouble with sleep. So there's something called sleep apnea, and there's also upper airway resistance syndrome, which is that fringe, that gray area. So you have to find a sleep doctor or pulmonologist who actually will treat that fringe area. Because we usually think of sleep apnea as this big old rotund dude with a thick old neck. No, you might have been born with a body habitus of having micrognathy, which means a small chin or a big tongue, or because in perimenopause or menopause we're gaining weight, now that weight is causing you to have resistance in sleeping. And that can manifest as ADHD symptoms, anxiety, depression, and trouble sleeping. So you have to keep that holistic thought process. I literally just captured a 27-year-old woman who has sleep apnea. And she says, I've been telling my friends my tongue was big. And she's cute.
We have another question about birth control being the same as hormone replacement or not. So clearly that's a common, a question, and so thank you for answering that before. But should we be concerned if our doctor is pushing compounded hormones versus pills and patches?
I'm the queen of compound. So just make sure, so when you do regularly, what usually happens is you get a patch that you change either once a week or every 3.5 days, then oral progesterone, and then testosterone gel. I personally will either put, I find a compounding pharmacy that I vet and I trust. And so I will go there, I will get my gear on, and I will watch how they make it. If they're sterile, if they're doing what they say. So I vet those. Not all are the same, but if you find a good one, then you can send, and I can get estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone for my women for $33 a month, all three, versus spreading it out into 3 different meds where you have. So yes, be wary, but make sure, don't just choose a random compounding pharmacy and use it. You have to vet it just like everything else. So, but I don't know, I've been doing it for 9 years and have had beautiful results. But again, was it vetted?
Yeah, that's a good experience to draw from. I think we're ending with a good one here. They're asking about recommended supplements during
I
this
have two
time.
things.
Go ahead.
Okay, any woman or any young girl or woman on any type of hormone, whether it's birth control or whether it's a hormone replacement therapy, I always say you need to be on 2 supplements. One is methyl B complex. Why? Because you metabolize your B vitamins quicker and get them out of your system quicker anytime you're on birth control or hormones. And what are our B vitamins? I think there's 8 of them. Biotin, thiamine, pyridoxine, B12, folate. And so as you leach those out, there's this thought process, okay, we put a little girl, she's 16, we put her on birth control. 2 years later, we're putting her on anxiety, depression medicine, but nobody checked her B vitamins. What if she has low B12 or low folate, and that's why she's anxious, but we think, oh, she's applying to college. She's taking tests. So she should be on a methyl B complex. Same for us as we're on hormone replacement therapy, is that we should be on methyl B complex. As it's being depleted and metabolized out of our system, we should replete it and just take it in the morning, methyl B complex a couple times in the morning. Your pee will be neon yellow because B vitamins are water soluble. What you don't use in the moment, you're gonna pee out. The second thing is called DIM, diindyl methyl something something. It comes from cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, okay? And what it does is, as our HRT goes into the receptor, there's a metabolite that needs to be pooped out. Sometimes, if you're not pooping because you're full of ish, that metabolite will stay in your system and can cause redness, swelling, and headaches. So then someone will think that they are incapable of taking hormones because they don't react well to it. That is one of the problem steps I'll take. Well, how much do you poop? It might not be the hormones, it might be that you are not pooping and getting that metabolite out. So DIM is something that can bind the metabolite and hold onto it, so it's not causing that redness, swelling, and headache. So those are 2 symptoms that I tell if you're on HRT to be on. And there's other supplements too, just generally, I do it all day, every day in my clinic, but those are the 2 specifically for here.
No, any others? Or would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I will say in support of that, I know someone who's a pediatric endocrinologist, and she's finding a lot of B12 deficient kids, and part of it is our diet, part of it is B12 is in the dirt that's on food, and now the way we treat our food, we're getting less of it to begin with. A lot of them are also on metformin, and that depletes your B12. So in support of what she said in terms of that, I mentioned on my slide magnesium. A lot of it depends on your symptoms, so there isn't anything that I blanketly prescribe. Magnesium, I don't go on your level, that's based on your symptoms. There is some evidence to support creatine, which is just something you put in your coffee or your drink in terms of brain health, especially in menopausal women, especially if you haven't had enough sleep. And then I do recommend calcium and vitamin D for most women. We achieve peak bone mass in our late 20s, and after that it goes downhill. And when you hit menopause, it really goes downhill. I think you can get calcium from your diet, but most women do need vitamin D.
And the level on labs that I look for are 50 to about 70. And I always say get your vitamin D and take K with it. K is our anti-mummy vitamin. Every day our bones break down a little bit of calcium to put it into our bloodstream so our muscles and our heart can contract. Afterwards, you're going to poop out your calcium unless vitamin D is there to tell you to bring it back in. But once it brings it back in, it doesn't tell it where to go. So a lot of times it will deposit into your blood vessel walls, hardening them, and your muscles, making you a mummy. So vitamin K's job is to say, calcium, welcome, but go back to the bone where you belong. Get out the streets. Go home.
Well,
But just when you, sorry, it's a follow-up question. So did you say as far as the B complex vitamin. Did you say that it's methyl B?
Methylated.
Methylated. Okay, so it's okay.
Methyl B complex, yep.
Great info. There was a reason I went to law school and not medical. So, with that, we can move on to the party time.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
I guess I'll just get a piece of paper and do it. Yeah.